This act makes the use of child car seats or child restraint systems for securing passengers in motor vehicles. But a little bit about ImagineLaw to this segment of our program. We are a public interest law organization that develops and advocates for evidence-driven policy solutions to enable all people to live healthy, meaningful lives. So we were established in 2016. Since then, ImagineLaw has been helping both the national and local governments enact public health policies. And I guess you're all wondering today, if we're talking about public health, why talk about road safety, right? And really, we talk about road safety as a public health issue or concern because of these numbers. In 2018, a recorded 12,487 people died on Philippine roads. That's about 34 every day, or 1% every, meaning pagkatapos ng press conference natin today, 1% will have died on our roads. Now, the number is even more grim when we talk about children. The Philippine Statistics Authority in 2017 recorded 1,226 children died. People below 14 years old, or at least 3 children a day. And take note, this number has almost doubled since we first began advocating for the passage of this law back in 2017. So, how does a child car seat or a child restraint system protect a child passenger? Adult passengers, such as myself, many of you in our audience, we have the regular seat belt to keep us in place. But by the very design of their bodies, children do not fit seat belts, diba? Their bodies are not yet fully developed. And so we see that when they do try the adult-sized seatbelt, it's either loosely fitting or ill-fitting. And there is that very real danger that in case of a crash, the child will be ejected from the vehicle or hit the side or interiors of that vehicle, which may have sharp objects. And so this is what a child car seat is meant to do, to prevent the child from being ejected from vehicle. And you can see here on the screen one of the more gruesome headlines that made the Philippine news. In 2018, was a vehicle road crash where an Avanza was sideswept by 2 speeding trucks. And there was a 9-month-old boy who was riding that Avanza. He was not properly secured in a child car seat. As a result, he was thrown out of the car he was riding. And you can see that's a photo of first emergency responders found him. Literally found him on the road. And so aside from the child car seat keeping the child in the vehicle, preventing the child from hitting the interior or intruding objects, a child car seat is meant to direct the forces resulting from a crash to the strongest parts of the child's bodies, the hips and the shoulders. This force distributed over a wider area, minimizing the severity of resulting injuries or even death. It protects the head, neck, and spinal cord. You can see here in the CRS I have behind me that the top area has torsion, and that's really to protect the more vulnerable parts of a child's body. And lastly, the child car seat helps the occupant, the child, ride down the crash. So ano bang ibig sabihin ng ride down the crash? We have, wait, sorry, I was just told my camera's working, but I hope others can still see me. A child passenger is allowed to ride down the crash with the use of the CRS because it's like when you're catching an egg, right? When an egg is thrown at you, you won't meet it with the same amount of direct force. You will try to cradle. And really, that's what the child car seat does. It cradles the child passenger to shield him or her from the forces of the crash. So in the Philippines, it's very common to hear parents say they will just hold on to their child inside a car. Ikakandong na lang yung anak or ikalong, thinking that perhaps their kalong or their embrace will keep the child safe. But the science says this is not correct. Your embrace is not enough to protect your child. If you can see on the screen the illustration of the physics behind the use of CRS, really. The weight of the child multiplies depending on the speed or the force of the road crash. So if you have a crash that occurs at 50 miles per hour or 80 kilometers per hour, then it would feel like you are carrying a 500-pound baby. If the baby is 10 pounds, that weight will be multiplied by that amount. And this is the same amount of force that you will need to exert to prevent the child from leaving your arms. So unless you're Superman or you have superhero strength, the parent or you will probably not be able to prevent the child from being deployed at that same speed. And 50 miles per hour or yung 80 kilometers per hour, that's very common speed at which vehicles traverse our roads. Speed that's allowed on our national highways or open roads. So it's a fairly common speed at which to travel. And so why the World Health Organization advocates for the use of child car seats, because this use is seen to reduce infant deaths by approximately 70%, while deaths of small children are reduced by 54%. At these ages from 0 to 12 years old, children are still developing, right? Infants and toddlers do not have the muscular structure to be able to protect themselves from whiplash in case of a sudden stop, in the case of a road crash. I already mentioned that they also do not have the physiological suitability to fit into an adult-sized seat belt. So that's why the WHO greatly recommends CRS use. And here in the Philippines, the national government acknowledges that requiring the use of child restraint systems or CRS or child car seats can reduce the number of road crash related deaths and injuries of child passengers on Philippine roads. So, and on February 22, 2019, the government enacted Republic Act number 11229. The reason why we're all here today, the Child Safety in Motor Vehicles Act. And this addresses the serious public health issue of the rising number of child fatalities due to crashes on Philippine roads. Almost a year later, before the start of this pandemic, or on February 11, 2020, the government issued the implementing rules and regulations. So according to the law and the IRR, mandatory compliance with the law starts next week, February 2021. And mandatory use of CRS or child car seats is seen in the provisions of RA 11229. And really, the law mandates the driver to ensure that a child defined as 12 years old and below with a height 4 feet and 11 inches below is properly secured at all times in a CRS or child car seat. That is 1, appropriate to the child's age, height, and weight. And 2, approved according to the standards set by the Department of Trade and Industry. And so there's reference to the standards being set in the United Nations Regulations number 44 or 129, its evolving standards, and other international standards. But again, this is a question we usually field, right, when we have our trainings and our other events and activities for this law. Mandatory compliance starts next week, but the law was passed back a few years ago. So what's been happening since then? So to clarify, the law has already been implemented and is currently being implemented by the different government agencies. Mandatory compliance, which means that the enforcement of the provisions for the driver to secure the child in the car seat will start next week. But here's what's been done so far. The Department of Trade and Industry has issued Department Administrative Order number 20-03, series of 2020. It's the new technical regulations concerning the mandatory product certification of child restraint systems. And later we'll hear Engineer Kim Palmes from the DTI on this topic. We also had the first round of training for fitters. Fitters from the Land Transportation Office will be established at the regional and district levels of the Land Transportation Office to provide assistance to the public. Parents who have a child car seat but require help how to install, how to use, how to maintain this, or even how to select the appropriate child car seat for their child, underwent training by our partner, Kids Safe Western Australia, led by Melita Jeffries. And really, I'm quite excited. I was very proud about this because the Land Transportation Office regions actually gamely participated despite the challenges of having this through a virtual platform, Zoom. You can see our LTO Region 1 demonstrating the skills that they built throughout that training. And the LTO is set to undergo 2 or 3 more trainings over this year to add to the ranks of certified fitters. The following week, second week of January, the LTO also underwent training for their enforcers. And really, this special training is needed because this is one of the first laws that will place LTO enforcers, directly in contact with a child. Other laws, that they've been mandated to implement, such as, smoke belching, speed limits, motorcycle helmets, ang kausap nila ay adult. But for the first time, right, there will be children involved. And so our consultant from the Global Road Safety Partnership from Slovenia, Mr. Robert Susanj, gave the LTO best practices on how to approach the enforcement of this new kind of legislation. So that's what's been done so far. And what's left to do is really to continue the rolling out of this new law. And that ends my presentation on what RA 11229 is about. It's my honor to be here with you today. You may reach out to ImagineLaw through any of the channels in front.